Sorry for the amount of delay. And let me take off this hat because I am hot. So, welcome to Give Yourself a Hand. Give Yourself a Hand is a... yes, what is the sound of one hand clapping? It's actually a friend of mine that can do that. So, this talk is actually about personal physical security in the guise of a compliance talk. So, bear with me. It may be a bit of a rant. Some of it may be a bit of a rant. But I'm basically going to talk about the human body as a human machine and how some of the hacker elements parallel martial arts elements, that you may look at these guys and think they're big meatheads, on the ground, throwing each other around, getting all sweaty and nasty and the like. But I'm here to tell you that the human machine that we operate within has multiple vulnerabilities within it that you don't think of every day, and yet we use this machine to create secure environments, ignoring the inadequacies within ourselves. So, with that in mind, standard disclaimer. Actually, not really. Everybody, if you've heard me talk before, I have legal problems. Meaning, lawyers and I don't really get along in my company. They have a problem with me when I go out to speak. So this talk, I have not vetted through them, run through anybody, because this is truly not about what I do, what I actually do. But secretly, it kind of is. So who am I? And where are my pants? Usually when I teach this seminar does not involve slides. It is discussion of theory, kinetic linkage, body, and then we get down to it and run through a bunch of different techniques. You can go with subliminal. Basically, I'm a security dude, pre-1986 child, which someone else has said before. That means you're old. I'm interested in hacking most things. Sorry about that dual core. I know you say hack all the things, but, I'm not really into hacking all the things. But I am into systems, and I see the parallels between systems and the body. So, the security methodology. You know it, you love it, you use it. Have you ever thought about using the security methodology on yourself? Anybody? Any practitioners out there? Anyone like, the martial world? Seeing those individuals? No? No one's into MMA? I was going to say, this could be very boring. But you'll see that these guys are hackers. They are hackers in the sense of what they do for human beings. So, the human machine, you're quite familiar with it, or as, like your two hands, head, legs, all that, or as some people may think, the supersized human machine. That's probably more me right there. The funny part is they always refer to it as pear and apple shapes, and those are the things that actually make you healthy. I've never understood that. So we're going to talk about some boring stuff, human physiology, your brain, your nervous system, your limbs, but think about them from the perspective of a system, an actual system. Because you're talking about your body, and your body is a system. It's probably the most complex thing on Earth. Simply because, your brain is mysterious and complex. The functionality between its communication paths and the rest of your body, is very odd, because even if you lose a limb, you've heard of phantom limb syndrome. People, it's still there because you're still sending signals there. The neurons are still going there. The nerve endings that ended there are still trying to do reporting. And you have to kind of think of it like that. So as I said, there's your brain. Your brain is the center of your nervous system, even though it's not actually located in the center. It's located in your head. There are actually no nerves in the brain. The brain does not have that, which makes it very easy when people are doing brain surgery, because they're not actually damaging elements that would be nerve endings, but they are damaging what to the nerve endings? They're damaging communication paths, in some cases, to nerve endings. It consumes a little more than a third of all the electricity generated by your body. Your body generates somewhere in the realm of 600 millivolts. And your brain consumes a little over 200 of those. So, sorry, all of those who may have thought the Matrix is real, it's not, because it would take an incredible amount of humans in order to, actually generate enough electricity to power pretty much any machine. You couldn't get a bunch of people together and power a monitor. That would be, virtually impossible. It is also located next to your sensory input organs, which is, by design, very good. And it contains approximately 15 to 33 billion neurons. Can you think of a network where you have that kind of level of traffic or information passing back and forth, and how that congestion and bad that would be? Yet your brain seems to handle that quite well. I found brain compact fluorescent lights online. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I have to buy some of these, by the way. That would totally rock at like a Halloween or something. So you think of your brain as, as a microprocessor. That would be me. I'm old school, i4060X2, 1989, I'm very old school. Most of you, that's probably you. You're probably rocking a Core i7, like quad-core, hexacore something. You're good like that. Me, not so much. So with the thought that the brain is in fact the CPU of your body, well then your nervous system, it is essentially your LAN. That's the LAN of your body. And it's an amazing LAN. There's approximately 45 miles of nerves in every person's body. Can you imagine a network that was 45 miles in length and you had to troubleshoot it? Something goes wrong, right? You have to get in there and do stuff. So neuroscientists, they're pretty amazing folks because they're working with some of the smallest parts of the body, and they are the communication paths by which things go from the command and control to the rest of your body. If you take your hand and you lightly rub the hairs on your arm, you will feel that. But you feel it not only here, but sometimes you'll feel it somewhere else. Because it's either overstimulation or understimulation that causes the nervous system to react and tells the brain that, oh, well, I also made some hairs over here stand up, or something on the neck stand up. Because once again, it's a very complex path. Now, limbs. If you're a standard OEM human, you have, 4 limbs, a head. You have these things. These are the nodes of the body. These are the actuators of the body. They can be jointed or prehensile. If you have a tail, I don't need to know about it. Excuse me. By comparison with other mammals, though, our limbs are weaker than most other mammals. You see people, they do improvements to themselves, bodybuilders, weightlifters, powerlifters, they do that kind of thing. Most other mammals don't have to do that. They're naturally strong. You see an ape or something hanging from a branch and he just dangles there all day because it's effortless to him to manage his body weight with the strength and capacity of his limbs versus ours. Of course, your legs are used for locomotion, and despite what some men may think and some things that they tell women, they don't have a third leg. Only that guy does. So, I know this is not exciting stuff. It's boring. I got it, but bear with me. Hang on. Now, in discussion of the things that keep your skeletal system in line, that would be muscles and the like, but the thing that actually holds your bones and helps your articulation points, those are your ligaments. Your ligaments and tendons are your connective tissue. In looking at those connective tissues, this could be very important because unlike other parts of the body, such as your muscle structure, which you can improve and strengthen, your ligaments and tendons, what happens when you tear a tendon? You're done, right? What do they have to do? They can replace it with cadaver tendon. What does that tell you about that item in your body?
Regeneration is limited.
Regeneration is limited, strength is limited, and therefore, no matter how big and strong you see a person to be, they always have that weakness in their body. Professional athletes are always popping a tendon or something, and they go down, and you see it looks like a string shooting up there, inside of them, correct? So if those limitations exist, those weaknesses, those inherent weaknesses, and yet we still survive, we're humans, it's the same as having a system online that has certain vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities can potentially be compromised because there are methods to do it, and we will go over 2 of them. And yet we continue to have that system in our environment because, well, we have to live. We use an inherent insecure person in order to create secure networks. We never look at ourselves from the same perspective of using the security methodology against us. So we have a couple of different identification of ligaments in the body. Your ulnar collateral ligament, which runs along your ulnar bone, and your radius. These are very effective manipulation points. And I say that because from the perspective of a person that hacks the human body, when I talk about hacking the human body, I'm not talking about putting something in it. I'm talking about taking it apart. Because that's what the martial arts teaches you. It teaches you, it reprograms your head, literally giving you the identification of where these vulnerabilities exist. And then you get to exploit them if someone does something to you. It is a ready response system, not an attack system. I know you see in the movies where Martial artists are like martial artists in the movies are like police officers in the movies. They can't get their job done until what? Not shoot somebody. No, they can't get their job done until you're on suspension. And now he goes out and resolves the issue, right? In the movies, martial artists are crazed people that go around and just beat everything in sight. Don't know why, but they do. Thank you. Sorry, I have a cold and I'm on meds, and that's always good. Thank you. So, keeping in mind those weak points in the body, and the fact that the human form itself is susceptible to, my uki has arrived.
Oh, no, that's actually me.
Oh, okay. I was going to use Josh as my demonstration point, but so keeping in mind that there are weak points in the body, and they are susceptible to, and the human body itself is susceptible to infection just as your network is. You have viruses, that affect you. You have weather issues that can affect you, physical and mental illness, obviously, birth limitations. Some people are not born with all their limbs. Some people are not born with full vision and the like. And there are environmental factors because when you get too cold or you get too hot, performance of yourself starts to fade, correct? Just as with a machine, if it gets too cold, being cold is great for computers, being too cold is bad for them. Being hot is obviously bad for them. But in terms of physical and mental illness, systems get infected, or they are from the manufacturer, OEM deficient. That's a problem. But the question is, can that be overcome? And the answer to that is yes. I actually have an example of a person who's done that. That was from a purely medical science perspective. From a holistic standpoint, there are systems that tell you that there are points on the body, and those points on the body are effective to shut the body down, either by touch or by striking or by the application of pressure. And they're primarily nerve clusters. They'll tell you there's 108 of them. 36 of them are fatal, where you can touch a person and occlude blood from going to the brain, reporting back to the agent, or blood as the packets try to go back to the processor. They're prohibited, and it'll shut you down. I've seen people just squeeze the jugular with really strong grip and knock people out. It didn't look like they did anything, but grabbed the guy by the neck a little bit, and the guy passed out. But he didn't. They shut down the means by which the brain, sends its communication signals by flooding it with nerve stimulus. That's a sin flood for you. So, does anybody know what that is? It is a beer tap. So because the body has vulnerabilities, we have an attack matrix or a defense matrix for the body. And that attack matrix or defense matrix is the tap, nap, or snap matrix. Tap. You want to do something in order to cause that person that is attempting to, assault you, hurt you. You want to take the fight out of them. Wouldn't it be great if you had a system, online where if I execute this script or take this defensive posture, my villain's going to go, that's an undesirable target. I've got to stop, and they're going to walk away, right? And we do that, don't we? We execute defenses. Well, I know I have executed defenses that have made my customer's network an undesirable target. So therefore, the bad guy does what? He's gone. He's going to move on to something else, which is not great. But in this case, for the body, once you tap a person out, usually they know you have the ability to do it, and they will usually leave you alone. If they persist, then you escalate your matrix. You go to the nap matrix. The nap matrix says, what I'm going to do is through either force of overstimulation, which would be making the nerves just all fire to the brain and the brain shuts down. You've seen it done before. If anybody's Ali fan, see Muhammad Ali, he's boxing. You don't think he's hitting so much, but he's hitting more often than the brain has the ability to understand. So he shuts the brain down through overstimulation. In this case, I'm not Ali, I just choke you out. I choke you out or I strangle you. There is a difference. One is a blood occlusion, which you will wake up with the worst headache you have ever had in your life. You will feel as if someone momentarily stopped blood from going to your head because someone momentarily stopped blood from going to your head. The other means of rendering you unconscious with the nap matrix is choking. choking is not like you see it in the movies, and I've had people like, well, I'll just hold my breath. Well, you know what? I'm squeezing the cartilage in your neck, so you will go out. What they don't tell you is you wake up feeling like you want to throw up. I haven't figured out why that is. But you just air occlude. No air. Shut it down. It's a very painful, arresting feeling in your chest, because I've been there. I've been doing this for a bit. I didn't think I'd been doing this for very long, but it's been over 30 years. It's actually the first hacking that I ever, really learned from some fine gentlemen who you will see later in the presentation. But it's occluding the air from actually getting to the brain, which is, the means by which the brain likes and the body and muscles all move because oxygenated blood flies through it. Well, what if you cut the oxygen supply off? And of course, if you cut it off for too long, problems are going to arise that are going to eventually involve lawyers. But your brain will arrest. It will not enjoy itself, and it will shut your body down. You get spotted vision, tunnel vision. Like, has anybody ever had spotted vision or tunnel vision? It's a trippy feeling, isn't it? Because it's like when it's over, it's still going on. Now, even though you don't have it, your body is still responding to the stress. It's still responding to the fact that you did something to prevent normal biological function from happening. And what that is within your nervous system, there are two types of nervous systems. There is the one we want to concern ourselves with is think of the autonomous nervous system, which is the subset of the peripheral nervous system. Think of that as a cron job that's always running. You don't have to tell yourself to breathe, right? You don't have to tell yourself to blink. It just happens, because your body says, okay, I need to have these things happen just to keep things going. So this person lives. He has to breathe. Circulation has to happen. Warning signs, if you ever touch anything hot and you jerk yourself back, that is your autonomous nervous system. It's going, hey, this gets priority in the queue. Tell this guy to take that node out of the fire. And he will pull it back. So think of that. That is what you're attempting to disrupt in your attack matrix. Some part of the nervous system, or obviously with ligaments, there's damage. And that brings us to the snap matrix. Snap matrix is, I'm attempting to destroy something. Something is no longer going to be attached to whatever it was attached to, and provided the guaranteed articulation of that point. You're looking to either take the limb, take that node, and torque that node to a point where pain ensues, and then take yourself 2 to 3 millimeters beyond that point. In the same way as, like if I were able to, I'm trying to think of a computer method that would probably, that would relate to it, but I really can't think of anything right now because there's nothing that we have currently that would damage the hardware to a point where the hardware is useless. Say again?
308.
I was going to say Charlie Miller. Charlie Miller, blow your battery up. He snapped that battery. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. It is occluding the person, by utilizing a method to, unfortunately, cause damage that will require some type of medical attention. And that's bad. We don't want to get to that, but that's why it's an escalation. So, excuse me. Going with the subliminals. So we now know that the body has these things that are wrong with it, and yet we all still exist, right? We're here, you're here, hearing me rant, listening to what essentially boils down to be a compliance talk about the body. But it's not. It's going to be a little more active than that. So we know that it has inherent vulnerabilities, suffers from viral infections. Obviously, OEM configurations may vary, change, and the like. Physical, mental issues, and the environmental factors. Well, now what? If the body is so weak, how is it possible to do something like this?
It's not, they fake it.
Say again?
It's not, they fake it.
That's right. I Photoshopped myself in there because that's how I roll. Someone actually said, they're like, janitor, why'd you put yourself in there? It's like, dude, I was at my instructor's school. He sprung you're going to break 4 of these 2-inch bricks on me. I went, oh. And then he asked me afterwards, it's like, when was the last time you broke? It's been 12 years. He goes, oh, you still remember. It's like, I could have broken my hand. But what comes into play is muscle memory, kinetic linkage, the things that we take for granted because we have programmed ourselves to sit down and use our heads on a system in a certain way, right? Just as with the martial arts, you program your head to use your body in a way that most people don't. You also do things to it that most people would not do. Certain types of conditioning exercises that border on, I believe the word is called brutality, but it is effective. It's very useful. So, if you thought I photoshopped myself in there, I'm sorry for this picture. It's really bad, but it was big, and I'm like, oh, I'll just take up my iPod. This looks like crap. These fine gentlemen here, friends of my dad, realized that I had basically, I had an anger issue as a kid. I know you find it hard to believe. I was a little bit angry. Oh, maybe I was angry because I lived in Baltimore. That's where I'm from. It explains so much, doesn't it? Why someone would be like, oh, why do you need self-defense? You know, a lot of people are like, well, you live in Baltimore. You must live in the county or the suburbs. No, I grew up at Cold Spring Lane Metro Station, literally 2 blocks from it. It is a beautiful area. But for those thinking I photoshopped myself in there, I must have also photoshopped myself in here. And notice I'm wearing the cool blue Jams and the IOU shirt. Man, I was happening. You know, you couldn't tell me anything. And at that time, that's probably Janitor 2.0, because I believe I was a 2nd degree black belt at that time. I was younger than I am now. Let's just leave it at that. Let's not bring age into this. So, here I am at Janitor 3.0. Does that guy look happy? That's an evil-looking dude, isn't it? And I used to wonder why do my students not want to talk to me after class? Like, because you're a dick. You're telling them, I want you to go home and take a stick and beat yourself in the leg with it, because when you're in the tournament, you got hit in the leg and you stopped. But how many people have had mentors where you're working on scripting or something and you get stuck, and what do? Are they kind and gentle with you? No, I didn't. Why? What happened? Somebody railed on someone? Oh, but that's the whole point. It's like, it seems like it's harsh, but it serves its purpose. It serves its purpose in order to motivate you to do what?
Try harder. To
try harder, to do better, to be that person that they see you to be. Even if you don't see it, they know, man, that guy's got so much ability. If I can just motivate him, how will I motivate him? I will yell and get on him and drive him to be that person. And he may not like me for a moment, but sometimes that's just what you need to do. I know if anybody's in the audience that are parents, you understand what I'm talking about. Because, come on, you know, you're like, hey, get moving. So by imparting that knowledge of kinetic linkage, they teach you to overcome the inherent vulnerabilities in the articulation of your points, your creases, the injury points of the body, things that no matter how big and strong a guy looks, you can take that guy down. I say that because my wife is 4'9", and I've seen her bring a 6'5" guy to the ground. I stopped her before she hit him in the temple, though. But, well, she did it for a reason. She was embarrassed. My wife, at that time, was a high-level brown belt. This student who is 6'5", my wife's 4'9", he hit her with a side kick, and it picked her feet up from under her and set her on her butt.
He didn't mean to hit her in the head.
No, he hit her in the stomach. But the point was, he's 6'5". If you can't see those legs coming from that distance, it's literally sitting there watching it going, and shocked. She gets up from the floor, she approaches the target, and the same things that we just talked about. She blocks his technique, she comes into him and strikes him at the Achilles tendon with her shin. She then steps in and basically hook kicks him at the back of the knee, which brings him down to her level. That's not good enough for her. Her assault tactics were, now I'm going to grab you by the collar, jump up in the air, and crack you in the skull. And I told her to stop. She's in the air. I'm like, Mate! She comes down. And I'm like, did you get that out of your system there, Rambo? What do you get out of that? You are a higher belt. Why would you? And she goes, well, he kicked me and it put me in a weird space. Like, really? Because he looked at her with this doe-eyed look like, oh my God, this little woman's she's going to crack me in the head. Going to crack me in the head. And if I hadn't stopped her, she probably would have. if a person of that height can take out a much bigger target, that means that something different is going on. Because looking at the disparity between the two, you would think the smaller person is obviously going to be in trouble. But smaller people have lower center of gravity. Bigger people, to compromise them, have to do this with their center of gravity, which compromises it. So she was decidedly at an advantage, but she didn't see that. By the way, I forgot to, I actually have my gi top. If you've never felt a gi top, these are, it's like being hugged all day by a really heavy, wet blanket by the end of the day. I don't know what that is. So, you know, we're wearing, you know, just like hackers have certain clothes and uniform, well, they have certain clothes and uniform. You know, they wear these things all the time, and people are like, well, why do you wear that gi? That's not going to be on you in the street. Well, you don't want it to be. You want to wear something that actually is more difficult and restrictive so that when you're in your regular clothing, your movement is unfettered. Because you're able to move around because you've been restrained in something, and you flow and make that look like, you know, it's ease. There's a purpose to just about everything in the martial arts that I have found. Here I am at 4.0, having received my 4th degree from Master Sanchez. He is an amazing martial artist. He's New York, Puerto Rican, so he's Norican. And he speaks Japanese, and he requires Japanese command set to be known in order to achieve 3rd degree black belt in his system. So that was fun. So, thinking again now, as a seasoned person, think of yourself as a beginning, you know, network person, you know a certain level of things. And that's what you do, right? But as you get older and become more seasoned, you begin to see the targets and items a little bit differently, don't you? You don't do some of the faux pas that you did when you were younger. Well, it's the same thing in the martial arts. As you get older, you start to see the targets differently. You start to think that, okay, well, I know that joints, points, and nerves can be manipulated, you know. Can they be mitigated? No, we've already discussed that. But that doesn't mean that they have to be vulnerable. Because if you can see an attack coming, almost like an IDS or an IPS, you can prevent it, or you identify it and you have remediation for it, right? So as you get older, the target matrix changes, although the attack matrix still kind of stays the same. You begin to think, okay, well, this is really all I have to do. In terms of conflict, and this would be much simpler, this would be so simple if this was reality for systems. This is where hacking systems and hacking people differ. What are these 3 things? They're identified as targets, but you know exactly what I'm talking about when you see those words, correct? As it applies to a person. If you're in conflict with someone, physical conflict with someone, and you remove one of those things, what happens to the conflict?
Ends.
It's done. It's done. Fighting is actually not that difficult, because all you have to do is remove any one of those things, and the fight ends. If I can stop you from moving, guess what I get to do? You have a nice day. Because I'm not going to stand there and go completely psycho on you. I didn't want to. I wanted to not fight. I tried everything to not fight. I've talked to you. Well, we go through 5 steps. In the seminar that I teach, we go through the 5 steps, which are talking, walking, and then you go into the attack matrix. You know, sorry. It's like, I tried to talk to you and tell you this isn't going to happen. I tried to walk away. You prevented that from happening. Now the attack matrix happens, and the attack matrix is combined with other elements, and sorry, it usually does not work out well for you. I still see myself, by the way, as being the 185-pound skinnier guy, but now I'm 250, and it's a different world for me. I have a lot more mass to put behind my items. So if I can... Yeah, sure, sure. That's what Jenny Craig says. So if I can wipe out your mobility, obviously I can walk away from you. If I can prevent you from seeing anything, well, once again, I get to walk away. And obviously respiration, if I can stop you from breathing, you are going to have a very bad time when you wake up and feel like you want to throw up, or you have an incredible throbbing headache, which is bad. There have been some famous body hackers. I'm sure everyone knows who this is. Huh? That's right. This is Lee Jung-fa, Bruce Lee. You don't think of him as a hacker, but literally this man pushed the limits of what physical ability are. His training regimen was psychotic. His warm-up is 4 hours. His warm-up was 4 hours. His workout literally lasted his entire waking period. You know, he was amazing in that respect. He's an amazing martial artist, correct? Who is his instructor?
He built his own system.
He did build his own system, but where did he build his system from? He did build his system from Wing Chun. His instructor was Ip Man, a very famous Wing Chun practitioner, which is a very static system, primarily composed of the 8 gates, and he uses some hand techniques in order to protect the body with minor kicks. You never heard of his instructor, though, right? A lot of people have not heard of his instructor. But what did he do? He saw that he learned and realized it was a classical mess. So he hacked the martial art and came up with his own martial system, which was the way of the intercepting fist, Jeet Kune Do. He said, there's a lot of, crap here. There's a lot of things that do not make sense. And we're doing it because people used to attack you like this. But they don't anymore. They got smarter. It's like, I am not going to be attacked by a guy with a banana. For all you Monty Python people out there. Or pointed stick.
Pointy stick.
Exactly. Or pointed stick. People actually learned how to engage in combat. So therefore, combat had to evolve for those individuals who were hacking the body. And he was a primary proponent of that. These guys are in here because they are very important to me. But for anybody that's interested in, anybody BJJ out there, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, interested in it, that kind of thing, you will be familiar with Kimura-san, because the Kimura lock, which is the occlusion of the arm behind the back to force a defined articulation of these joints, affecting the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist, if you do it right. He did it so much that it became the technique was named after him. He's interesting in the respect that by the age of 18, he was a 5th degree black belt. It was unheard of. Unheard of. People say, well, in the old days it took a long time. He was 18. He made 5th. He made full master. It wasn't until he was in his, good Lord, I think it was his late 50s that he made 6th or 7th. But by 18, he was beating everyone at the Kodokan, which is the home of judo. The person that's important in this photo to me is this man, Matsutatsu Oyama. People called him Mas Oyama. Talk about being dedicated to your craft. Would you trust your craft to protect you from a hurricane? That man did. They had massive storms hit Japan back in the day, and he would stand on top of skyscrapers and greet them and not come down. Like he took hacking the body to beyond its limits. Here is part of his training regimen. Yes, this is his hand. This is a hammer. This is conditioning. He actually had people constantly pound his body so that his nerves did not respond, literally protecting the system by deadening parts of the body. He then said, that's not good enough. What I need to do is prove that my techniques are the ultimate. And he created a technique which to this day is known as the God Hand. A technique that is so powerful, it is nothing but a simple punch, but powerful enough that in the scene where you see him wrestling this bull, he would turn bulls over and chop their horns off with his hand. That became not good enough for him. He would let them charge him, and he would punch them in the skull and break their neck. With all the inherent vulnerabilities in the body, he had appeared to overcome the limitations. But yet he was still susceptible to the same joint attacks, so what did he do? He practiced judo. He learned the throws. He learned the classical movements. He incorporated it into a system, and that system to this day is called Kyokushinkai, and it is Kyokushin, and it is known as the true fighting karate. Because its black belt test, its full master test, is you have to fight 100 people. 100 people consecutively. He did it in a day. They now do it over a course of 3 days. There are some famous martial artists that practice Kyokushin. One of them, if you have seen in The Expendables, if you've seen The Expendables, his name is Dolph Lundgren. He is actually a ridiculous he might be a 4th by now, 4th degree practitioner of Kyokushin. So, yeah, that happens. It's awesome. Don the Dragon Wilson is a practitioner, and no, I did not Photoshop myself into that suit. I rented it. Oh no, that's the one I own. That's the suit I own. This is actually from, I got invited to the big dinner, the big Martial Arts Hall of Fame dinner, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm helping out, doing all that stuff. And I'm sitting at the table talking to my students, and they're calling a name. And I'm like, I'm not paying attention to that because I don't know who that is. They're calling my name. My students are like, that's you, sir. Because How many of you are confident enough to take your abilities and go to any network and execute your vulnerability, or execute vulnerabilities on people? I do that. When I travel, I always take my gi with me. If you have a school nearby, I may see you. I had traveled to so many schools and instructors were like, there's this guy, and whenever he's in town, he throws my guys around and treats them like rag dolls. And that word got back to the Masters Hall of Fame, and an instructor that knew me said, I know that guy. And I basically was awarded I was given a lifetime award for essentially the Kane, the Kwai Chang Kane award of still running around old schooling it. Yay, let me show you something. You know, because I have insomnia. If I don't do something, I will not sleep. So when I land in your area, I might be at your school. Jean-Jacques Machado, who you may or may not have heard of, the reason why I bring him up is because he has an OEM limitation. He is missing most of his left hand. And yet, this man is an Abu Dhabi champion. He's one of the most technical grapplers on the planet. The Machado brothers are the cousins to the Gracies. You may have heard of the Gracies. The Machados are ridiculously good. One of their famous students is Walker, Texas Ranger. Hey, if he's good enough to train Chuck Norris, that must be a bad man, right? Yet there's no fact about him. These are some individuals you may or may not know. This is at another ceremony where they were being honored. I was not. That's my instructor, Professor Jones, Big John McCarthy, who was also a black belt in BJJ. And that is, I just lost his name. That is so sad. Richard Steele, sorry, Richard Steele. Oh, good Lord, he'd kill me. That is Mr. Steele, who is a famous referee and boxer, Randy the Natural Couture, and we're all at the Masters Hall of Fame where they were being honored, which I was honored to have been invited to that. So, going to have to kind of speed this up a little bit. Given that, you know, the body's a very complex system, and we could go into a myriad of attack methodologies against the body and its subsystems, we're going to talk about one particular thing. Gave it away in the title. We're going to talk about your hand. And what I challenge you to do is, if you do not believe that the limitations of your ligaments and the like, and you don't have to participate, but if you're next to a neighbor that will allow you, I want you to stand up and face your neighbor. And if I could have a... And we're going to go over something that's very, very simple. You're attacked. Someone grabs you. Doesn't matter how they grab you. Cross or same. Sorry, hands. Oh. We're doing the hands. So someone grabs you. First of all, you never give someone your hand. You always let them take it. You let them take it. Now, what you want to do is, it's very simple. Whenever people get grabbed, they do what's natural. The natural thing when you get grabbed is to do what? Everyone hops on the choo-choo train, right? They do this. This makes absolutely no sense, but it's natural. But the unnatural thing, as we have learned unnatural activities on systems ourselves, you can grip.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Is the unnatural thing is a very simple circular motion. This is all you actually have to do to escape a person's grip. This is really all you do. And because I am at the ground, I'm about to grab him to compromise, because that tells him I might be a grappler because I grabbed him. You know, if I'm a fighter, if I'm a striker, then I'm going to break and probably put my hands up because I want to strike. So it's a very simple thing. If someone grabs you, and you can experience this yourself, all you want to do is look at your watch. If your watch face is on the inside of your wrist, you can get a good grip. I can go slowly and look at my watch. Now, if I want him to remove his hand absolutely, and you can grab, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, and I'm going to take his hand off, because this leaves me in a breaching position so that I can turn him into what I was talking about, rear naked choke, night-night, wake up with a headache. So it's very simple. All you're doing is either here, pop, or here, where you turn the body through acquisition of force into this node, into this wrist, and cause pain, and tells the person to jerk the hand down. Feel free if you want, or we may be out of time.
You guys, I think we're like between 5 and 10 at this point.
Okay. So that's a simple attack. That's a simple attack methodology. We execute that principle every day in our enterprise. We don't try to whip out our A game on people when something happens, do we? We go for something simple, just as our attackers are going for something simple. They attack what? I know it's after lunch. Vulnerable points. You know, the things that you can't shore up. Right now, they're currently attacking people. It's the easiest thing for them to do. fishing, fishing, spear fishing. They're hitting people. But if we train people, hopefully they will, in the same fashion, have these same defense methodologies as we have in the martial arts. So the question is, if you had tried it, what happened? And then, why didn't it work? Well, just like with systems, you have subtle variations in the way your hand is configured. Configuration issues, just like with a system. Different levels of pain tolerance. Some people will attempt to hold on or attempt to force your arm down. In that case, their threshold to attack is much higher than you anticipated, and you underestimated your ability, so you should have raised your defense methodology. And certain small joint flexibility. Some people are just very resistant or resilient to attack. I have a friend where, I'm not joking, she can actually touch her wrist with her fingers because she's a gymnast and she trained her body by stretching out these ligaments. So, it didn't work. How do you make it work? Well, that's how you get to Carnegie Hall. In the same way as you continue to sit down to learn, scripts, or we sit down and learn the intricacies of systems, we practice, practice, practice. And that should make us better, right? Hopefully we don't come across someone with a greater amount of skill, because then we have to step our game up. That's a picture of students of mine at my house. My brother Terry was visiting from USC. He's the guy in the center. And my wife, who, despite the fact that she's smiling at you, that's not a nice woman. She's a very nice woman, but when she puts on her gi, she becomes something else. She enjoys herself. She enjoys the fact that as long as someone's not punching her, she will take them to the ground, she will choke or strangle them unconscious. Because if you attack her, she looks like the victim, but she's not. That's really all I have. Are there any questions? I love this picture. This is from a seminar I did in Florida, and this guy got so red because I didn't realize I was perfectly aligning my bone onto his jugular, and the blood was just pooling in him. And his instructor goes, "Yeah, you could tap out if you want." And he just sat there thinking he could take it. This guy is a doctor. He thought he could take it. And he's just like, "Oh, just go." And I'm like, I let him go, because that's what you do. Are there any questions? Anyone? Nothing? I hope it was informative and let you see the parallels between what happens in the martial arts and what happens, in what we do in our day job. This is my night job. I actually do not charge anything for teaching martial arts because a lot of people took the time and invested in me and gave it to me for free. I had to clean the schools and do some crazy things because, unfortunately, didn't grow up with that kind of money. But they wanted me to have it. So therefore, I feel compelled to pass it on. And I see the parallels between it and my day job.
What do you see as the parallel to come? In other words, you've been talking about how you attack weak points. Mm-hmm. We attack weak points. What's next? Is there a parallel with what's the next gen martial art in terms of next gen pen testing?
Not that I can see, but as the martial arts is getting better, people are getting smarter. They are losing technology that we hold on to. We hold on to legacy stuff. We don't find a way to migrate it. There are some systems that are still holding on to these legacy things. Like you hear certain systems, and you think, well, that's a bad art, because I saw Steven Seagal do that. It's Aikido. What does Steven Seagal actually practice? He practices Aikijitsu, and he is the pariah of the Aikido community because Aikido is nothing like that. It's not a fighting art. It's a beautiful art. It's a harmonizing art. But it's not the, I'm going to snap your arm, I'm going to snap your limbs. No, that's the fighting system. So there are still some arts where you're like, that guy's a black belt, but he can't fight. Because he practices a system that is for tradition and classic and the like. It is not for combat, engaging combat. And we maintain systems that can't be secured. We're putting them online like SCADA systems and the like. They were never meant to have that level of interconnectivity, but we're doing it. You don't walk on the battlefield with your hands down around your waist going, somebody swinging? Somebody shooting? Because you're going to get hit. So in that respect, that's a parallel that I see. How we're going to fix that, I don't know at this point. Thank you for your time.
What do you mean?